For nearly 9 centuries, a single family held the French throne. From 987 until the mid-1800s, the House of Capet maintained a grip on power that outlasted plagues, religious wars, and the rise and fall of neighboring empires. While later historians often attributed this longevity to divine mandate or grand military conquest, the contemporary records suggest a much more clinical origin. The ascension of the Capetians in 987 AD functioned as a calculated boardroom coup. It was engineered by a decentralized oligarchy of regional power brokers. These regional dukes convened to deliberately liquidate the centuries-old Carolingian dynasty, the bloodline of Charlemagne himself, and move the crown to a new firm. They selected Hugh Capet as the beneficiary of this transition. At the time of his election, he was known more for a lack of wealth and military resources than any personal strength. This lack of stature was exactly why the regional nobility voted for him. By installing a weak executive, the Board of Dukes ensured they would remain the true masters of the realm. To see why the dukes preferred a weak king, we have to look at the political structure of 10th century Francia. It operated less like a unified nation and more like a highly decentralized conglomerate. The title, King of the Franks, was an executive position with significant prestige but limited assets. The true equity, the land, the taxes, and the military levies, was held by the regional dukes, who functioned as majority shareholders. This map displays the scale of those holdings: massive territorial monopolies controlled by regional dukes with their private armies. In contrast, Hugh Capet's domain is restricted to this tiny sliver centered on Paris and Orleans. Hugh's power base measured roughly 400 square miles. The Duke's vote was based on simple arithmetic. With such a restricted land base, Hugh Capet was physically incapable of raising a force that could challenge their regional monopolies. He was a safe executive because he was an isolated one. The alternative candidate at the time of the election was Charles of Lorraine. Charles was the last legitimate heir of the Carolingian bloodline. Under traditional rules of succession, he had the primary claim to the throne. However, Charles had spent his career as an ally of the German Autodidact emperor. He was effectively a vassal to a rival foreign power. If a German vassal held the Frankish crown, the Autodidact Empire would gain direct leverage over Frankish internal affairs, threatening the independent power of the local dukes. During the election, opponents of Charles argued that his ascension would lead to an external corporate takeover, subjecting Frankish lands to imperial German control. This foreign entanglement turned Charles's legitimate bloodline into a liability. To the local oligarchy, his royal heritage was a risk they had to reject to protect their own autonomy. The Assembly of Senlis in 987 served as the venue for a tense, transactional negotiation. The regional lords gathered to set the terms of their next management structure. The architect of this transition was Archbishop Adalberon of Reims, the chief political strategist for the anti-Carolingian faction. Addressing the lords, Adalberon executed a radical rhetorical pedant. He openly rejected the long-standing axiom of hereditary right as the sole requirement for the crown. He proposed that the throne should be awarded based on nobility of soul and personal merit. This argument about character provided a transparent legal cover for a political move. By replacing bloodlines with a subjective metric like merit, the Assembly gained the legal authority to select a malleable candidate of their choosing. The Assembly successfully executed a legal pivot. They replaced the traditional monarchy with an elective system designed specifically to install a controllable puppet. Charles of Lorraine immediately contested the vote and seized Lyon, the traditional capital of the Carolingian kings. Hugh Capet's personal weakness was quickly confirmed on the battlefield. He besieged Lyon twice, and twice he failed to breach its defenses. Reaching a military stalemate, Hugh's faction turned to subversion. The Bishop of Lyon faked an alliance with Charles, infiltrating his inner circle. To gain Charles's trust, the bishop committed a calculated act of perjury, swearing extreme oaths of loyalty and inviting a curse upon himself if he broke them. On Maundy Thursday in 991, while Charles was asleep, the bishop captured him and delivered him to Hugh. Charles was moved to a fortress in Orleans, where he spent the rest of his life in silent imprisonment. This quiet detention, facilitated by a bishop's perjury, marked the end of the Carolingian line. Their centuries of dominance concluded with a simple arrest rather than a final stand in combat. Hugh Capet had secured the crown, but his position remained incredibly fragile. He realized the same elective system that put him on the throne could just as easily be used to remove his son after his death. The dukes still held the power to vote. To protect his family line, Hugh engineered an administrative maneuver known as Anticipatory association. He demanded that his son, Robert, be crowned as a second king while Hugh was still alive and reigning. To secure the Lord's consent, Hugh fabricated a crisis. He claimed a planned military campaign against Moorish armies in Spain required a backup executive to ensure the stability of the realm if he died in battle. The dukes conceded to this immediate administrative logic, failing to see the long-term consequence. By crowning the son today, they were forfeiting their legal right to choose the next king tomorrow. Robert was crowned on Christmas Day 987, seating two Capetian kings on the throne at the same time. This dense Latin record represents the legal reality of the move. By securing his son's coronation, Hugh used a loophole to bypass the elective system established at Senlis. He had locked his family into the executive office. This maneuver initiated an unbroken father-to-son succession that lasted for centuries. Historians refer to this as the Capetian miracle. Generations of kings used their secure office to slowly expand their 400-square-mile holding until it covered the entirety of modern France. The ultimate result of this 10th-century strategy is visible today at the Basilica of Saint Denis, where the Capetian kings were interred. The longest-running royal house in European history began as a tactical corporate maneuver. Hugh Capet turned a position of weakness into a dynastic monopoly by weaponizing a single boardroom loophole.